Namaste everybody, welcome to Thoughtful Thursday. My name is Nityananda and we have you for the hour tonight to take you through a nice session. I hope you're all well, I hope you're all relaxed, all calm and had a good week. Also warm, it's quite cold tonight. So to begin our class tonight, we're going to go through a guided meditation for 10 to 15 minutes, and then following that there will be a talk. Tonight's topic is meditation, mental health, and then we'll finish the class with some kirtan or yoga sound meditation. So we're going to be beginning to relax the body and mind first. So it's important to begin that you find yourself a nice, comfortable sitting position, or you can even do this lying down if you like. So before we move into the meditation, always try and keep yourself nice and relaxed. Try and really immerse yourself in the meditation and relaxation so that you can get the most out of it. If you're joining meditation for the first time tonight, thank you very much. Okay, so just to begin, wherever you are, if you're on the couch or sitting on the floor, sitting up nice and straight to begin. It's always nice if you can lengthen your spine a little. Just feel like your posture's nice and relaxed. If you like, you can now begin to start to close your eyes. So you may have had quite a busy day today, or you may have had a nice chill day, just getting things done. So whatever the day brought to you, just start to put that to the side. And begin now to just start to place a little bit of awareness onto your breath. Just becoming aware of the breath. Just note the rhythm of your breath, whether your breath is laboring, starting to lengthen the body and take your breath to be a little bit deeper. What's nice to do to help you to focus it, making the breath more longer or more smoother, you can place your hands onto your lower abdomen. This just helps you to guide your breath and begin it with the lower lungs filling up first. So you can feel the breath expanding. Just feel the abdomen gently pushing down into your palms. Breathing in and out through the nose. Just feel the shoulders just starting to sit back. So we're just preparing our body and mind to start to focus. So we're aiming to have a little bit of quality now in our breath. The breath is smooth and relaxed. You're beginning the breath with the abdomen expanding. Then the breath finishes its upward movement into the chest as you inhale. And as you exhale, just feel the breath just fall from the body, very effortless. You can also just start to draw your focus inwards. Bringing the mind also into this practice. It's important that we also try and integrate the mind by helping it to focus on the breath. Relaxing the face and eyes. So I'm going to just guide you through a nice yoga meditation called Mindfulness Meditation. In this practice we learn to take a step back from the mind and all its busyness, its constant activity. So we begin the mindfulness meditation now by just visualizing yourself sitting somewhere quietly within nature. Maybe at the top of a mountain on a nice, warm, sunny day. And as you sit, look out at that beautiful vista, you'll notice all the changes, colours, maybe different aromas, all the different features of nature in front of you. You may see the trees blowing in the wind. So just watching these movements of nature from a distance. This meditation is also called the silent witness meditation. This is where we learn to take a step back from the activities of our mind. In this age that we live, our minds are very overstimulated. Our minds cause us a lot of anxiety and stress. So important teaching in the yoga system is to take a step back from it. Don't be so engrossed in the activities of the mind. So now we're going to take a step back from the mind and watch the different thoughts, different activities. Maybe there's different memories and different mind stuff that comes to the surface and just sits and covers the mind. So we're just going to be watching these activities occur. And as we're watching from a distance, we are just going to take a step back, not becoming engrossed, not becoming touched, just remaining aloof as these things occur. So we're noticing how the mind continually moves. It's very active by nature. It's also very restless. So as one thought is replaced or image is replaced by another, just watching, remaining aloof. So this meditation helps us to understand practically that there is a viewer of the mind. There is a viewer or a perceiver of all the mind's activities. And this viewer of the mind is you, the self, the living being covered by the subtle body of the mind and the gross physical body. So this meditation is also very practical to apply in our daily life. When we find that the mind is raging and causing us stress and anxiety, we can learn to take a step back from the mind. Don't go with it. There's also the ancient yoga mantra, Aham Brahmasmi. I am spirit, not matter. I am not the body, and I am not the mind. The body is temporary. The mind is always changing. I am the eternal spirit soul. Aham Brahmasmi. So now we're going to take the mind into a meditation and engage it into focusing on transcendental sound. So transcendental sound has a purifying effect on our mind and consciousness. We're going to add this mantra to the breath. The mantra is the 4 syllables Go-Ra-Anga. Goranga. As we breathe in, we say the mantra quietly in the mind. And as we breathe out, we say the mantra aloud. Goranga. By doing this, we place our mind on the sound vibration. This is where the effect will come, by engaging the mind in this activity. So we'll begin by taking 2 silent breaths together, which I will guide you through, and then we'll add the mantra Gauranga. Okay, so let's begin now. Exhaling, emptying the lungs, breathing out. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale again. Exhale. Now we'll add the mantra Gauranga to the breath. Breathing in. Just keeping our minds focused on the sound vibration. Let's say the mantra one more time together. Gauranga. So I'll ask you now just to return your focus onto the breath. So the nature of these mantras is that they are of a transcendental nature. They are of a non-material energy. They have a purifying effect on our heart and mind and can help us to understand who we actually are. Help us to understand our real identity and can help us to understand our real purpose in life as well. So just taking one more breath with your eyes closed. So when you're ready there, you can just start to slowly open your eyes. It's a very nice way to begin the class tonight, by just taking a step back, slowing our mind down, just moving away from the clutter and chaos of life. So thank you for joining me. Before I begin the talk tonight, I'd just like to offer my respects to my meditation teacher. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Siddhasrupananda Paramahamsa Tinamine Bhajashri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasi Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. So thank you. Just a little bit of background on myself just before we begin. I've been following the practice of Bhakti Yoga for nearly 25 years. I also have a background in traditional Chinese medicine, mainly acupuncture, and a background also in sport. So tonight's topic is meditation, mental health. So according to the WHO, which is a very prominent organisation at the moment, mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which each and every individual realises his or her own potential and can cope with normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. So that's their definition. So mental health is such a big topic. It's in all scopes of life at the moment. You know, in business, in sport, in all sectors of society. And industries are actually finally waking up to this important issue, that looking after our mind and looking after our mental health is very important. Even so much that the federal government itself, you know, has a budget of $180 billion a year invested into this sector through resources and people power. So our appreciation of mental health and dialogue has changed a lot over the years. We no longer, you know, sweep this issue under the carpet. You know, people are now more open to speaking up, to sharing their issues, to reaching out for professional help. And we no longer tend to use the terms in this regard of such as "she'll be right," "just get over it," "things will change," or even crudely we even say "toughen up." So now instead we tend to reach out to people, or most of us are encouraged to reach out to people in this important issue of mental health. There's professionals. It's become a very big field. Even so much that some of our national sporting bodies such as NRL, AFL have even gone into investing their own people into the community to talk about the prevalence and also the impact that mental health is having on society. So the ancient yoga system, I'm not sure how many of you are joining tonight for the first time or have heard many of the wisdom talks, but the ancient yoga system is very much able to shed some light on the topic of the mind, the position of the mind, the purpose of the mind and its function, and also describes very deeply about the mind's nature. So for all of us, if we're able to have a better quality of life, have a better balance in our lives, and find happiness, is because that's the issue or the thing we're actually looking for. We need to be able to have practices and techniques that we can actually apply in our daily life that actually will promote a better health and well-being. So the yoga system provides that in so many different ways. So the mind, we should look at first at what its place is. So in yoga science, in the science of identity, it describes our true identity as being of a non-material nature. Okay, so the person itself, we're actually of a spiritual nature. And we actually are covered by two bodies. One being a subtle body and one being a gross physical body. So if I could use my hand as an example here. I'm using the hand as an example as the self. And covering the self is this subtle body which comprises the mind, the intelligence, which is higher than the mind, and the false ego. So this is a subtle covering that sits over the self. So we're unable to perceive it by our gross physical senses, So in the ancient yoga text, the Bhagavad Gita, it describes the nature of the mind. So the Bhagavad Gita is described as being the essence of all yoga knowledge. Contained in this very nice scripture is a lot of wonderful information about identity, our identity yoga, the science of yoga, and devotional practices. So in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, in text 34, it describes that the mind is very restless. It's turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna. And to subdue it, it seems to me more difficult than controlling the wind. So we have a look at some of these qualities of the mind and look at them a little bit deeper. When we hear the word restless, we think of something that's disturbed, something that's not calm, something that's not tranquil or peaceful. Turbulent, another one. If we have a look at that, if we go down to the ocean, if we all like to go and swim in the ocean, or even if we're on an aeroplane and we hit some turbulence, the nature of that is quite strong, it's quite difficult and overpowering. And obstinate means that the mind is extremely stubborn. Okay, so it likes to dig its heels in. It likes to do its own thing. And by its nature, it's also extremely strong. So this wonderful text explains that the mind is an element that has a potential to actually give us trouble and grief. And we can all recognize that in ourselves if we are a little bit introspective, that our mind does give us grief. It does give us trouble. It has this potential, not always, but it does has this potential to have darkness in it, or to have darkness cover it. So by being very stubborn and erratic and turbulent, it points to the fact that the mind needs a stronger or a higher element to help control it. And this meditation practice of yoga sound meditation is this element that is actually perfect in this age that we live to actually help us to control our minds. The age that we live in, it's described as being extremely chaotic. It's also described as being, people are very competitive. People like to argue. People quarrel about lots of different things. So in this age, our minds are overstimulated. Our minds are, absorbed in lots of unnecessary things. We're bombarded with, advertising and things on our phone. So the mind is easily troubled and disturbed in this particular time. So in this particular time, it's advised that the practice of meditation needs to be easier to perform. So just a little reflection here that we might like to go into, that in our own, just a little own space that we're in at the moment at home. So one of the important things that we're encouraged to do as people on a spiritual journey is to be introspective, to actually look at the forces around me, what can control me, what I can control, and to be introspective also into the activities of my mind and my personal behaviour. So in this little reflection we can do ourselves now, we can ask ourselves during the course of the day today, what content did I engage my mind in? Obviously we've had daily chores where we go to work, or we do work around the house. But in my free time, in my own personal time that I have every day, what content did I place on my mind? It's very good to actually have a look at that. And also trying to understand what result this content had on my well-being. How did it make me feel? Did it make me feel relaxed or peaceful? Or did it make me stress? Did it make me more desirous? So it's important to understand that we need to be aware of what we're exposing our minds to. So the Bhagavad Gita then goes on to later state that the mind is so strong and obstinate that it can even overcome one's own intelligence. So an example in this regard is, when our mind is raging, it's raging in fire of anger or frustration. The example here is when our mind is in this state, what effect does it have on us? We obviously we don't have clarity, we don't feel relaxed. We feel like we're under a very strong force. And when we're under this strong force, it forces us to act in ways that we often regret or don't want to engage ourselves in. So the very function of our mind is that it takes in all of the activities of the senses. So everything that we touch, everything that we taste, good and bad, everything that we hear, everything that we smell, is drawn in through the neural pathways of the senses, and through different chemical reactions it's imprinted or placed on the mind. So I like to think of the mind being something like the analogy of like the beach. The beach is just covered in sand. And if you go to the beach on an extremely busy day, you'll notice that there's all these different imprints, different footprints in the sand. Different sizes, different shapes, some imprints stuck on others. So the mind is like this. All of the sensory information that comes in leaves an impression on our mind. So as these impressions come in, it's important to understand that who is the viewer of the mind? Who is the person who sits back and watches all these activities of the mind? So the mind is also described as being like a large movie screen. So if you go to the movies, which we've all been to the movies and sat down in the chair and watched, as we sit up and look at the big screen, we see all the different scenes, the different change in colours, different actions moving across the screen as we sit and watch it. So the big screen up there is very similar to our mind. Okay? But there is also this acknowledgement that there is a self, there is a person who actually watches all of this. So as we briefly went through in our mindfulness meditation here, it's important to understand that there is a viewer of the mind, that the mind is actually not me. Okay, the mind is separate from me, separate from the self, separate from who I am. So this points to the fact that we should be quite careful and take some care in what we actually expose our mind to. In the yoga system, it also describes that taking good care of our mind and looking after our mind, that we should show some restraint, that we should actually be a little bit thoughtful about actually what we lend our mind to, what we expose it to. And the reason being is that because all of the activities that we allow our mind to be engaged in or to feel or that they get input from our senses has effect on our consciousness. So our consciousness determines the way that we actually behave, the way that we interact with other people, the way we act in our own behaviour and relate to others. So our consciousness serves very much as a template for all of our experiences in life. You know, the amount of happiness or distress that we actually experience and where we look for this happiness is determined by our consciousness. So an example might be, you know, we've just been through this very unique experience of COVID. We've had lockdowns and we've had lock-ups and lock-ins and lock-outs. You know, we've had, you know, this new process of social distancing, which is very new to us, and it's caused us to live in a way that's, you know, caused stress to a lot of people, of course, but it's also made us live in a way that we're not used to. We've had to change the way that we conduct ourselves in society. So through this experience, you'll notice that people tend to behave in different ways. Some people behave like saintly people. They're very caring, they're very giving. They go out of their way to help others because of their consciousness. Their consciousness is more elevated. It's more in the mode of goodness. They have more clarity, they have more vision. Their mind is less disturbed. Whereas you also have people in this situation who unfortunately act in a different way. They have used this situation to be exploitive, you know, instead of, you know, selling their produce for the normal price, they up the price. You know, the price of masks has gone ridiculously through the roof in this COVID experience. So our consciousness determines also the habits that we adopt and the go-tos that we have. So when we're feeling stressed, worried, or angry, or experiencing many different emotions, or we find that our mental state is not that calm, our consciousness also determines where we go to and where we look for an outlet. So for example, I've got a couple of different examples here. Gardening, or finding, you know, when you're stressed and upset, going to do some work in the garden, or going for a stroll down the beach. You know, this has a calming effect on our mind and our consciousness. You know, getting out there and smelling the roses, and, you know, that smell of the earth, and the touch of the soil in our hands, and the trimming the leaves of the bamboo and all these things has a really calming and relaxing effect on our consciousness. Whereas, you know, if we use our outlet, or the example of an outlet would be going to a nightclub, you know, where we go and bombard our senses, we disturb our mind, we overstimulate it. It has an effect. It has an effect on the way we feel, the way that we act, and the way that we behave. So all of the activities that we engage our senses and our mind in, so all the activities that we engage our senses in, has an effect on our mind and our consciousness. So in the Bhagavad Gita it then states that a man must elevate himself by his own mind, not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul, and it is his enemy as well. And the following verse states here, "For he who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his very mind will be the greatest enemy." So these are very powerful verses that give us this insight into the care of our mind. So we need to actually take some care of our mind. We need to actually engage in processes that help us to manage our mind, help us to take better care of our mind. Because as I mentioned just a little bit earlier, that there is a propensity for our mind to wander into the negativity. So the processes of meditation and yoga, engaging our mind and immersing it in yoga sound, in these mantras, is actually the perfect tonic, the perfect practice in which that we can apply to make our mind our friend. So these verses are very powerful, and it also lets us know that if we are able to do this, to actually take some control of our mind and experience more peace, that actually we're going to feel happier. We're going to feel more content. Whereas if we don't take some steps to actually manage our mind and take care of it, take some time out to take your mind away from all of the rattle and hum of society, all of the craziness, all of the overstimulation, that if we continue to just let it run wild, that we'll actually live a life that's very imbalanced and not happy. And may even go to a point of seeking desperate measures to escape from our mind. So, the greatest tool for personal renewal and personal development is meditation. I really like this next saying. It's very, very powerful. Meditation is the art of inner reflection. Meditation relieves anxiety. It deepens clarity of vision and leads to a deeper happiness and inner peace. It also gives us a vision of our inner self and enables us to recognize and respect the spark of life within others as well. Meditation is the key to the experience of yoga and union. So myself, I began as I mentioned before, my meditation journey about 24 years ago. And I remember when I first began meditation, I actually, to be honest, I found it a little bit difficult at first. I tried a couple of techniques to try and relax and calm my mind, and found it very difficult. And I wasn't aware of the fact that the mind is actually something I need to look after, I need to take care of. And when I first began meditation, I felt like I had this, my mind was like almost like a wild animal that was out of control. Became very, it was easy to be distracted, was always drifting off and taking me in directions that I, were not even aware of. So by adding this wonderful practice to our life, our mind can start to take a back seat. So our mind likes to, I like to say, likes to push us around, likes to force us to do things that we don't even realize that it's trying to get us to do. So by the practice of meditation, in particular this practice of yoga sound meditation, which is actually recommended by a great saint, the wonderful Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by engaging and immersing our minds in these sound vibrations, we can actually start to get some clarity as well. In the yoga text, it describes it by engaging in meditation practices, we elevate ourselves more into the mode of goodness. So in this mode of goodness, there's actually two other modes. The mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. When we are elevated into the mode of goodness, we're actually able to have some real clarity. We're actually able to see things as they are. We're actually able to have more peace, have more respect for others. We're also more in tune with our environment, more in tune with nature, and more in tune with the goings on also of our mind. And one of the important things is if we're able to elevate ourselves and be more situated in this mode of goodness, is that we can have insights. We can actually have true knowledge. It's described also in these yoga texts that this mode of goodness is also a platform or a takeoff point to entering into spiritual advancement, to making spiritual gains. So these wonderful practices of meditation are what can help us to cultivate and change our inner climate. So our inner climate, or our consciousness, determines the way that we act, determines where we look for happiness and where we look for peace. So in that regard, just another small reflection that we can go through before we actually start to move into our kirtan is we can ask ourselves, how many of my thoughts, my desires and urges that I follow are actual sources of pleasure? So our mind is always throwing forward these urges and thoughts and desires. Are they a source of anxiety, stress, or frustration? The unfortunate thing about our minds is we tend to think it's a very sacred item. We tend to think, oh, it's come up with this grand plan or this grand desire, I need to follow it. So this practice of meditation and real mindfulness helps us to actually learn to take a step back from the mind. And this will help us to have a better understanding of our real mental health by learning to take a step back from the mind, not to overstimulate it, to engage it in processes that actually help to purify it and manage it. And as was mentioned in these wonderful yoga texts in the Bhagavad Gita, that it then becomes our friend. It's not our enemy. That's an extremely powerful thing to say, that we're actually covered or engrossed daily with our greatest enemy, which is the mind. So I hope that these ideas, these also gems of wisdom from the Bhagavad Gita have been helpful tonight. If you do have any questions, you can obviously send something through on the Facebook page, and some of the other speakers will also try and help you with that. So what we're going to do now is move into kirtan practice. As I mentioned, this wonderful form of meditation is about engaging our mind under a higher source, a transcendental source, so that we can actually experience some peace and happiness that we're really looking for. So we're going to be using the mantras Gopala, Govindarama, Madana Mohana, and Haribol, Nitai Gaur, Haribol. Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana. Okay, your turn. Govinda Rama Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana Gopala Govinda Rama Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana 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 Haribo, Nitsai go, Haribo, Haribo, Nitsai go. Haribo, Nitsai go. Nitsai go, Haribo, Haribo. Haribo, Nitsai go, Haribo, Haribo. Haribo, Nitsai go, Haribo, Haribo. Haribo, Nitsai go, Haribo, Haribo. Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana 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 Gopala Govinda Rama Haribo Nitsaiko, Nitsaiko, Haribo, Haribo, Nitsaiko, Nitsaiko, Haribo, Nitsaiko, Nitsaiko, Haribo, Haribo. All together. Haribo, Nitsaiko, Nitsaiko, Haribo. One more time together. Haribo, Nitsaiko, Nitsaiko, Haribo. So just keeping your eyes closed for a moment as we finish our kirtan meditation. So I'd like to thank you very much. Please accept my respects. Namaste. Please, I'd like to thank you very much for joining tonight. Please subscribe to our page, ASMY, the mantra room as well. And if you have any questions you'd like to ask or any comments, please send them through.